London and who will lead us and teach us about the UK.
Hi, so thanks so much for joining us here tonight. As Vicky said, I am Sam. I'm heading up private services at DCMN in London. Okay, I'm up. So I thought I'd start by telling you a little bit about myself. Before I started at DCMN, I was working agency side for a few years, and before that I worked in-house for various brands, heading up the offline departments, covering UK, APAC and EMEA, brands that included Ancestry.com as well as Photobox, who some of you might know because they're under the umbrella brand for Poster XXL, among others. So hopefully you would have got from my accent, I'm actually British and not Australian, as lots of people first guessed, which is slightly weird. So now you know a little bit about myself. I will be hosting this section of this evening's event before I hand over to my colleague Madda, who will be sitting down and hosting a Q&A session with Franksmile and the lovely Vivien, who is in the crowd at the moment. So we will be deep diving into Franksmile's experiences in the UK so far, and really understanding how they've navigated the UK market so far in their journey. So looking forward to that. So before we do that, I wanted to start with a short introduction. First up with the UK landscape, then moving on to why London should be part of your 5-year expansion plan. Then with the channels, devices and platforms, what's really working in the UK and London in particular, and finishing off with our own top tips on how to enter the UK market. So the UK landscape. I'm sure unless you've had your head in the sand for the last few years, you will have noticed the news and the tabloids which are splashed across on a daily basis. And I know you could be thinking that it's all doom and gloom in the UK with Brexit just around the corner. But I have some good news. Britain's technology startup sector is booming, and we continue to see year-on-year growth. So compared to other European countries, we are trailblazing when it comes to turning digital startups into billion-pound firms in Europe. So the UK is only sitting behind China and the US in terms of creating unicorns, which, as I'm sure you'll know, that UK is slightly smaller than China and the US, so really we're not doing too bad for ourselves. The independent analytic firm Dealroom, along with TechNation, have highlighted that the UK has produced 70 of the world's unicorns already, and 15 of these companies are currently based in the UK, with a more than 21 billion net worth. So it's pretty huge for such a small country. There's also 17 more expected to join this exclusive group by 2021. So already that's a third of the world's unicorns based in the UK. And we have the likes of huge fashion brand, as I'm sure you'll know, ASOS, as well as Monzo, who are the UK's equivalent to N26, who you have over here in Germany. And with the AI masterminds DeepMind, recently being bought by Google and actually remaining in the UK and expanding their offices in London, we are now the leaders in AI technology. I feel like I'm bragging slightly about the UK, but you're going to get the point of it soon. So as you can see here on the map, Edinburgh, as you can see here on the map, the UK communities, which are starting with the unicorns, are spread across the UK. So we have the likes of the Hut Group in Leeds, Skyscanner, who are the travel fair aggregators based up in Edinburgh, Boohoo.com, who have over in Manchester, and Manchester is actually a real hub for startups and unicorns at the moment. But really it's varied across the UK. Maybe unsurprisingly though, London is at the heart of the UK's success. So I am probably slightly biased because I am from London. Through and through, London girl, and it definitely does have my heart as cities go. But even without my bias, we know that London has become Europe's high-tech hub. It is a mammoth startup machine, which by 2018 had produced 36 unicorns. But luckily for you guys, it's not just homegrown success stories. We have so many European and global companies joining the UK day in, day out. And really finding their foothold there and creating success for themselves. and think tank centre for London, who recently ran a study, has shown that London's growing popularity in the UK for head offices and global head offices has continued to grow, despite the lingering uncertainties with Brexit. So London was ranked top in the list of global destinations, beating the likes of other heavyweight countries, including Paris, New York, Hong Kong, Singapore, Berlin. So, it's not all brilliance. There is a slight slowing in the current climate. So, Reuters recently flagged that UK consumer spending has been the slowest it has been in the last 6 years. And to match that, marketing spend in 2019 is set to slow slightly. But we are still expected to see 1.6% year-on-year growth in consumer spend and an additional 5% year-on-year growth in marketing spend. So overall, it's a really positive story, even with the socio-economic climate as it is. We're continuing to see growth in both advertising spend and consumer spend, showing that the UK continues to be resilient, even in these times of hardship. So whilst we may be small, I think we can all agree that the UK has great opportunities to be had. So why London? What makes London in particular so lucrative? So the UK in total, our tiny little nation, holds more than 66 million people, and 8 million of those are concentrated in London. That's a 77% difference in available consumers for you guys to target versus here in Berlin. It's pretty big. And on top of that, London is the #1 largest English-speaking country in the world. So these figures might leave you asking yourself, is a country that's so competitive right for me and my company? Will I be able to create cut-through in this kind of climate? So I'm going to move on to a few points which should hopefully answer that question. So we have some of the best talent in London. Between Silicon Roundabout, which is Old Streets, in East London, which is where DCMN offices are based, and the newly dubbed Silicon Valley of the South, which is Croydon in South London. European businesses have a wealth of expertise and experience with the most diverse workforce. We've got 230 varied tech specialists, 400,000 creatives, and some of the world's best professional service providers, all sitting within London and the UK. And we are the perfect time zone. So, as I mentioned previously, London attracts more European HQs than any other European city. And this is partly down to London being the nexus of European, US, and Asian time zones. So London hours overlap with 99% of, overlap with countries that generate 99% of the world's GDP. So it's a brilliant place to be. And you don't have to get up too early, you know, you're always in a good time zone. Big savings. I mean, when you open in a new territory, and I think this is probably one of the first things that you should be thinking about when you move into the new territory, is your bottom line. And London is brilliantly equipped for new businesses looking to emerge. We have one of the lowest tax regimes in Europe, making it super business friendly. And to add to the low taxation, London has many advantages, which make it the easiest city in Europe in which to do business. So things like flexible employment laws, low-cost legal structures, entrepreneurs' visas, and capital gains tax reliefs. And for any of you who have been to London, you will know that you sit on the tube or you walk down the street, you will never see the same person with the same ideas, with the same ethnicity in the same place. It's a multitude and a multi-mix of culture and age-expansive city. It's amazing. It's one of the reasons why I love London so much. So, this collective mass of consumers come there obviously for many reasons, but the low-cost travel to get to London is definitely one of those. So low-cost airfare, low-cost rail, and it brings loads of people to London. So whoever your target audience is, doesn't matter how niche they are, you will be able to find them in abundance in London. And this makes it a really, really easy city to do your test campaigns in. And our government are behind you. They might not look like they have their shit together, especially at the moment, but they are offering various investment and innovation opportunities. So I would definitely recommend when you come to London, have a look into what there is available, because it's ample. We have R&D tax credits, patent boxes, entrepreneurs investment schemes, and many more. So definitely take a look and see what's open and available to you. of the UK and why London specifically. So let's move on to channels, devices and platforms. I'll keep this quick. So looking into the marketing space, we are a mobile first nation. As you can see here on the graph, mobile usage is much higher in the UK than it is in Germany. And then to add to this, the most recent IAB UK and PwC digital ad spend report showed that the majority of all growth is coming from mobiles and smartphone advertising, which has increased 1.65 billion year on year. That's a 35% year on year increase since 2017 to 2018. And at the end of 2018, advertising spend represented 51% of all ad spend in the UK. And now diving into our digital channels, we are super excited about the growth of Amazon DSP, which is said to be the new Facebook for retail companies. And as it's a new kid on the block, it gets us excited because we're a bit bored of Facebook. I think everyone is. But Amazon's extensive user data gives us not only fantastic reach, but amazing targeting opportunities. So it's definitely one to watch out for. So, on to above the line. Obviously, I'm really keeping this quick, and there's a multitude of many things that you could look into, but these are our top favourites. So, outside of digital marketing, the UK has a wealth of out-of-home opportunities. London opportunities can be used as brand performance. So it's really unlike many cities in the world where out-of-home generally costs a lot more and is more around the branding strategies. So we have the opportunity to use out-of-home for brand performance strategies in the UK. Tube car panels in particular are a very much sought after medium for a lot of startups and a lot of our clients. They offer a 12-minute dwell time for commuters, and that's 12 minutes getting in front of upmarket 20 to 40-year-olds, which are the prime target audience for many of our brands that we're working with. So it's a really great opportunity. And this level of reach and dwell time is unparalleled to any other out-of-home placement and really unique to London. And once you've progressed in your marketing strategy and you're moving up the funnel and looking at more branding strategies, we obviously have the complete domination packages, which as you can see are totally impressive. So you can take up space everywhere from the floor to the walls, to the escalator panels, everything you could think of, we can sell it. So London is very unique for that as well. And just jumping back inside the home, so TV still remains a key channel for performance brands. In total, there are 867 new or returning advertisers to TV in 2018. Monzo, as I mentioned before, the equivalent to N26, acquired 10,000 new sign-ups from just their first day of airing a TV ad in the UK. So hopefully that shows you just how impressive and how much of an opportunity there is for new businesses starting on TV. And interestingly, the highest level of investment in TV in the UK comes from online businesses. So no longer the bricks and mortars are running the show, it's all the online businesses. And in comparison to Germany, the UK reaches 8% more people each day. It's not a huge difference. But unlike Germany, the UK boasts more than 800 channels. So the reason I mention this is these 800 channels means that we can buy TV in a really efficient manner. And it really takes the opportunity of buying and varying your strategy from free view channels, so terrestrial channels, to paid TV channels, so Sky channels, and mixing that up into a brand performance campaign. So DRTV campaigns can be achieved on a low-cost level in the UK. TV, out-of-home and radio are highly trusted mediums in the UK and can be bought efficiently, as I mentioned, and worked into performance campaigns at every level. So, finally, on to top tips. So there's obvious questions that you will need to ask yourself before you enter any new market. So the wheres, the whys, the whos, any sort of go-to-market strategy you will need to have in place, obviously. But as we're short on time, I wanted to touch on our overriding recommendation on how to scale your business. So we always approach every single campaign and every single new client with a test, learn, scale approach. So this is how we approach every campaign and really everything we do within DCMN. And we believe this approach will drive success at every stage of your growth, including market entry. So a big mistake many companies make is hitting the ground running with old assumptions from prior learnings. And even though Germany and the UK are 579 miles apart, they are worlds of difference through and through. So you cannot copy-paste your strategy, the channels that you've been using, or the learnings that you've had from your German campaigns, from your French campaigns, any other European country or globally, and run those in the UK. You really need to tailor your approach. So before you launch, do your homework, go in with your eyes open, do not copy and paste your media, and really it will make a huge, huge difference with the results. So it's super important to localize your media strategy and really go beyond local thinking and think about it hyperlocally. And I know you're probably thinking, can you really test hyperlocally in the UK when it's such a small market? Well, the simple answer is yes, you can. And I will show you a few ways to do this. So I keep these as checkpoints in mind. So embark on a segmentation study. Understand who your audience are in your new target audience, in your new target market. It will really, really hold you strong with all of your learnings going forward. Understand where they reside. So even in London, we have huge varied splits. We've got East London, which hail the younger, trendier audience, and then West London, you know, we've got people that are looking for the more high-end brands. So you need to think about where your brand is going to sit, even within London in a hyperlocal way. Price elasticity. This varies hugely throughout the country. So keep this in mind when considering offers, discounts, and of course your chosen price point. I've been a sucker to buying a £10 cold pressed juice in London, which I think is totally acceptable, but if you offer that when you're up in Wales, or down in Wales rather, you will not, you know, be met with the same people. And use test groups throughout your campaign launch. So test your language. You need to work out if your language is colloquial, is it working in line with your tone of voice and your brand tone of voice, which sits across your whole brand. The agency that controls the government's annual 400 million advertising budget, the COI, Central Office of Information, found responses to advertising tone of voice and advertising vernacular really varied across the UK. So in some places they prefer local vernacular, and in some places they prefer maybe the Queen's English. So you really need to understand these different voices. And I've got an ad here just to show you, which will give you an idea of what I'm talking about, because this is a really hard-hitting ad from the UK, and it was used lots of different voices to really create cut-through. So I'll jump across that.
Yes. So, hello, I'm Ross Kennedy at the car doing a press test.
Look, you had 2 pints, you're over the limit. That's a 12-month ban and a criminal record.
Hey, it's company policy, I've got to let you go.
I know there's only 20,000 on the clock, but that's the final offer. That's just great.
Thanks. No license, no job. Now what?
So, what's it going to be?
Yeah, that really worked on you. So the same applies to the content of your ads. So whether you decide to work with an agency or not, you need to make sure that you're understanding current affairs, you're listening to TV ads, listening to the radio, and really getting the nuances between the different markets. So one of the things as a global agency, we like to share ads that are coming through so we can all create learnings off of those. And some of the ads that come from Germany, which are running on German TVs, we love, they're funny, totally different humour to the UK, but straight away we know that they would not be allowed on UK TV. They'd be stopped by the ASA straight away. So it's really understanding these differences, because they're kind of subtle, but then to others they're kind of glaringly obvious. So, yeah. And finally, use a bottom-up approach. So start with digital, max out performance, and then move on up the funnel. And it's really important to note here, the funnel changes between territories. So really, you need to keep in mind, as I mentioned before, out-of-home, radio, TV, it's further down the funnel and it can be used further down the funnel in the UK, and that's not the case in all territories. So you really need to understand the differences in your funnel and the nuances between the territories. And test and learn and scale as much as you possibly can. So test on these cheaper channels, create the efficiencies through that, and use those learnings, whether it's language, whether it's creative, tone of voice, etc. Use those as you go up the funnel, so you're really making the most of your marketing budget. So, Here today we are lucky enough to have Franksmile and Vivien from Franksmile joining us. And as I mentioned earlier, they've tackled these challenges themselves already. So I will now hand over to my lovely colleague Madeleine and Vivien, if you join us on the stage. And that's it for me. If you have any questions, feel free to catch me afterwards. I'll have a glass of wine in my hand. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So my name is Elasticity. I'm the Senior Digital Marketing Manager for DCMN UK. I'm joined by Vivien Bresson. She's the Head of Performance at Franksmile. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Vivien Bresson. I'm currently heading up the marketing department of Franksmile, which is the latest venture from Rocket Internet. We are a 5-month-old company and based here in Berlin, but we have decided to make our first market the UK. So that's why I'm here.
Great. Wow. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to start this Q&A by quoting something you mentioned on the phone the other day that I found quite interesting. You said that you do hardcore advertising in the UK in compared to the rest of Europe. I would like you to explain to the audience what you meant by hardcore advertising and why you needed this approach in the UK.
Yeah, sure. So basically in the past, I did live and worked for years in the UK. I was actually working for the Hut Group, which has been mentioned earlier. And what I can see is that UK is and isn't Europe. Like, let's not fool ourselves. There is a bit of America in the UK culture and the way they actually approach advertising. And they are like, you know, it's a very colorful culture where you can be, but they are just more used to advertising altogether, so you can do more that US aggressive approach, and that's why, like, you know, I would call it hardcore advertising. You don't have to be that subtle, you have to be friendly and make an emotional connection with the people.
Okay, and you think that in comparison to, for example, Germany, that doesn't happen so much?
Not that much. Berlin and Germany in general is way more focused on products. If you want to sell to German people, what I've personally experienced is that you have to be like, hey, this is my product, this is good because A, B, C, D. To the UK, you're like, hey, I'm a brand, I'm your friend, you're gonna like me because of that.
Yeah, I actually agree that it has a high emotional content pushing, I feel, the UK in comparison to the rest of Europe. So it's quite interesting what you're mentioning. So we know that Franksmile has only recently launched in the UK. Why did you decide to launch there over other markets? And what factors did you consider in your strategy, especially with Brexit Day approaching?
Sure. So I mean, for those who don't know what Franksmile does, we actually offer teeth straightening products, and 82% of Britons hate their teeth. So that came in quite useful. That being said, what was interesting for us with the UK is that we actually picture it a bit like the sandbox for advertising. UK people are more receptive to advertising, they are early adopters, you know, they're kind of like your beta testers of Europe. Once you try things in the UK, then you can be like, okay, this is working, and now I'm going to expand to a more traditional Europe.
Yeah, of course. And what role do you feel within the strategy Brexit had with this? So did you have, for example, when planning on launching the UK, was Brexit a consideration?
I mean, you can't really ignore it. That being said, we did. So basically, for us, we decided that Brexit was a problem for operations and customs, but it wasn't a marketing problem. Because what's happening is that basically, you know, I mean, as it has been mentioned, we have 66 million people in the UK who want some product, who are interested in them. We are expanding potentially to countries like Russia, Brazil, China, Japan. UK is not going to be that much of an issue, so we decided to risk it, and I'm actually really happy we did because it's going very well.
Okay, that's great. It's great to hear. So you yourself have a personal working experience with the British market, having lived there and worked there for about 4 years. I think in the Hub Group, right?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Do you feel there's a big difference between Germany and the UK now that you have the insight of having worked in both markets?
From a marketing perspective, I mean, UK is a bit more interesting initially because you have more advertising products available. To give you an example, things like TikTok or Snapchat or Pinterest were available, the advertising platform, earlier in the UK than in Germany. So having a strong partner in the UK or at least some contacts in office really helps. That being said, for everything else, you know, Berlin is a very modern city, like, you know, you feel the same startup vibe. Most differences come more of like the relationship as employers and employee.
Yeah.
There's more positive reinforcement in the UK, but that being said, there's like a real honesty working with German people once you register. But yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. So, for example, with talking about the differences between both markets, do you feel you had to adjust the messaging or tone of voice when moving to the UK market from Germany?
So actually no, because we started with UK.
Yeah.
So we decided to be a little bit cheeky about our messaging, about our tone of voice, have like that really friendly approach, again like that sandbox approach.
Yeah.
And yeah, it worked out quite well. We made a good connection with the customers. We expanded the advertising tone of voice to our customer service and also to our CRM strategy. And yeah, we actually took the risk of being a little bit less medical, despite what our product is, to prioritize connection. And so far so good.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So you feel you can take that approach with other markets, or do you feel this is only a strategy you would be able to apply in the UK?
We have now our brand and the identity, and for us and for our staff, and like, you know, we want to stick with that brand identity. We're not a corporation that's going to be a different company for every market. That being said, what I mentioned earlier, if we were to launch Germany at some point, the focus will be on the product, not that much on the relationship.
Yeah, of course. Well, that makes total sense. So what other big learnings have you had working with the UK, apart from what we mentioned in terms of tone of voice or strategy? Are there anything else that you feel is like a big learning?
So there's two things there. One thing is also like London versus Berlin versus the rest of the UK. London, when you have to make a difference between when you advertise to London or when you advertise to the rest of the UK. London is a high-end, top talent, classy place. Like, you know, you need to respect some rules and you're gonna succeed. While the rest of the UK is a little bit more conservative, a little bit less cosmopolitan, where you have to think about localization a lot, like as she mentioned. And then the other, like, you know, big learning with the UK is, yeah, but again, that's what she said with localization. It was funny because we actually hired some Scottish people on a customer service. So when people from Scotland call, they have a Scottish accent.
That's very smart. So Sam spoke a lot about London in her talk earlier, and it's no secret it's a very competitive place. What do you think Berlin startups need to know about working specifically with London?
First of all, the fact that yeah, you're gonna have to be very good. Like, if you don't feel that you can be very good, then maybe start somewhere else and go to London, because London does attract top talents of UK and of the world. So, you know, just like, you know, go for it, or like, you know, try other places. Manchester, Birmingham are great places to do some initial tests. The other thing about London is that, yeah, if you want to go for it, maybe it does really make sense to have a local partner or a local office again that can connect you with what's happening real time.
Yes.
You have to be extremely reactive with what's happening in the news there. You can really easily detach yourself, and then you just kind of lost the touch with the consumer.
Yeah. No, I agree actually. I've had experience where since everything's moving so fast in London, I agree, you have to be reactive. Something happens in the news or culturally, and you have to like be ahead, just to make sure you're not kind of damaged by what's happening. And speaking about outside of London, what opportunities do you think exist here? You mentioned Birmingham, you mentioned Manchester. For example, what learnings have you got from the Art of Home campaign, London versus Manchester, for example?
Franksmile has opened about 6 stores in the UK, and we have very, very different results from a store to another. So we've been trying to do some different things, and we did some underground campaigns in London, and we did some like panels around Manchester. And what we saw is that like London worked out better for us, because I think there's just some sort of like, that's Vivien theory, like don't trust me, just like listen to me, is that if somebody walks in front of like a big panel and they're very close physically to it, there seems to be more connection towards those advertising panels. Why in Manchester, and we were there 2 days actually ago with my brand manager, and what we saw is that they were just like a little bit further and they weren't that good to connect. So I would suggest like, you know, have a very good partner that you trust there, and also go and see by yourself. Like before you invest to, like, I don't know, 10, 20, 50,000 pounds or euros into something, have a look and feel of the city, or send one of your employees to actually see what you think is gonna work.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, that makes total sense. So in terms of the advertising ecosystem, and meaning offline and digital channels, do you think there are more opportunities in the UK or Germany? Even with Brexit, do you think this will continue to be the case?
Definitely, because I mean, there's also one thing that I would say is a very Berlin thing, is that Berlin is not representative of Germany. But London is a little bit more representative of UK advertising culture. Here you go out and, like, you know, Berlin is full of startups, so you see advertising everywhere, and you're just like, okay, well, this is how it is here, this is just Berlin, the rest of Germany is not like this. While, you know, if you're in the UK, you would do your performance game, you would just start with performance marketing, really good tracking, making sure that, you know, you connect the dots together, and then you start out of home. This is going to be the same thing if you launch Germany, Sweden, or the UK. But I think you can be a bit more ahead with the out-of-home activity in the UK, because it's more about that 360 approach where you surround the consumer with your brand. Not that much here so far.
No, I agree actually. I feel back in London we do have a holistic approach when it comes to advertising, and having that advantage of different channels and mediums to reach a single customer, it does that of kind of hitting them from all sides, and it does help kind of keeping top of mind for that consumer. And in terms of advertising technology, do you feel there's certain advantages in London or in the UK over other parts of Europe?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like when I moved to Berlin a couple of months ago, actually, it wasn't that long ago, I was very frustrated because I was working for that company before Franksmile, and I was like, I'm going to do Spotify ads, and now you can't do that here, it's not here yet. And then I wanted to do Pinterest ads, and they were like, oh, maybe we can put you on the beta. Why in the UK, or like the way these companies work is that they just launch US, and then US works, and then it's going to be UK, and then maybe potentially Israel or Singapore, and then France and Germany. So having actually like a local partner, again, a local office just opens you all of these opportunities for advertising, and you can test more, and it's also very important to be in these like new channels because no one else is there. So you get very cheap CPCs, very cheap CPMs, And if it doesn't work out, then you didn't invest that much on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, especially on the digital side that I can comment on, I feel there's big opportunities in London. Technology-wise, we, as Sam and you mentioned, we have great talent, people developing amazing technologies. So, and as you mentioned, since there's not so many advertising fighting for the new spaces, you can get a competitive advantage that's great at the end of the day. So yeah, that's I'm glad we agree. So one final question before we move on to the Q&A with the audience. If you could give one piece of advice to Berlin marketers entering the UK, what would it be?
Oh yeah, actually easy. Hire one British person and listen to them. That's just it.
That's it? Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, having that inside knowledge, it really helps, especially when identifying strategies. I think having a good team in the UK that knows the landscape and how to react and how to set up a campaign and optimize it quickly for that particular audience, it's a great advice for moving from Berlin to the UK. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll open the Q&A for the audience. I don't know if you already have any questions in mind. I'm happy to respond, Vivien as well. So yeah, anybody want to start? Yeah, there we go.
Hello. Thanks for this talk. Just a quick question. What do you think is the biggest mistake that people make when advertising in the UK that they're not necessarily advertising in to start with?
I think one of the biggest mistakes they make is that, okay, UK is closer to America, but they are not American, so you don't have to be that aggressive.
Yeah, I agree. I think as well, the tone of voice is really important. I've noticed working with different markets and especially working with the UK, as you mentioned, being cheeky or being on a more emotional side, connecting to your customer, it goes a long way in the UK market in comparison to other markets, I feel. So yeah, for Germany, it's all about facts. It's all about the benefit, what I'm going to get from this product. With the UK, is how it makes you feel. So I think there's a big difference, and advertisers moving there, I think that's a big consideration to have.
Use emojis, like emojis everywhere. They work very well.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Have you ever tried humor in your ads? And by which extent have you used humor?
So actually, so that's going to come in as a big surprise, and sorry if I offend anyone, but for me and from all my experience, humor worked the best with Germans. It was when I was working for a protein company, and we made an ad about how you don't want to have spaghetti arms anymore because you want to take some protein and then you get big arms, and it worked amazingly well. Right now with Franksmile, we don't go too far on the humor in the ads because, again, medical, so it's about being trusted.
Yeah, I agree actually. For me, it's more about you have to be really aware of who you're showing these ads to. So for example, in your product, so if you have, for example, a medical product, it might not be appropriate, and it might make the user at the end feel a little bit uncomfortable being treated this way. I'm a big fan of testing with small segments. So I would test this idea of humor because I think it all depends on the medium. If you have a format, for example, a video, really depends where you're placing this video. You can really engage with the person, but it could fall a little bit not great for some people. So I would definitely recommend test, learn, and scale.
Yeah, actually, I would just add one thing. What we actually do for the moment, because we mentioned stickiness, is that we don't put humor in our ads, but we reply with humor in the comments on Facebook, for example.
Hi, you mentioned earlier that in the UK, obviously, if you have a really strong brand, people are more likely to pay attention to you from the get-go versus in Germany, they care more about the product. I was wondering if you could touch a bit about like brand loyalty from that point of view. So would you see that if you get a consumer excited about your product, they're a bit more brand loyal there versus in Germany, or is it opposite?
So because of product, we straighten teeth for life, so we don't really retain people. But when, again, I was working at the HUD group, what we saw, and it was funny, is that loyalty is actually not loyalty to the brand, but it was more a laziness loyalty. So what we worked on was not that much keeping people in touch with the brand, but using CRM campaigns, using loyalty points, to just make it it was easier for the consumer to order again than to actually spend time searching for another brand, if it makes sense.
I actually, I think that it is not loyal, in my opinion. I think that's why the comparison websites in the UK work so well, because the UK consumer likes to do research. They like to get the best deal, if possible. So I think, yes, they are not loyal. If they will be offered a better deal, most of them will take it, but there is a big emotional side to it. So it's not just like, okay, it's cheaper, I'll go for this. Is it cheaper? Is it better? Is it aligned with my values as a consumer and them as a brand? So I think all of these are, important things to think about, when building the strategy.
Hi.
Okay.
So back to the humor question. So you're basically telling us that if you were to use the A26 advertising approach, you mean to tell me would not work in the UK?
Unfortunately, I'm not. I haven't watched the ad.
So it's not even like, sorry, it's not video based, but like in terms of they billboards, etc. They have like this hashtag FVs and like no bullshit, whatever the case may be. They have like this really standardized. I mean, that's what got me to sign up, because I was like a bank that swears, yay. So and also it was pretty much like it spoke to us who were relatively young, who also, as a student, you just don't want extra fees that are always there, etc. So when it also just said it in a language that I can express, that's kind of in the same humor that he was asking. You mean to tell me that might not work in the UK?
I think it's important to go back to just thinking about who your clientele is, who your customers are, testing the language, testing if the humour works. It's going to be very different for each and every other brand. You can't say N26 will work for
it's not just N26. I think it's more like what I'm saying.
As an example, I think it's really important to make sure that you look at your brand as an individual and test each of your communication strategies, each of your brand strategies before rolling it out. Because it may well work in the UK. We have brands that have a younger, more fluid language, so it's not just totally straight up there.
No, I agree with that. I think it's, I have this methodology of work, and I see that a lot of people here in DCMN have the same approach, which is trying to really go hand in hand with the brand. And as we mentioned, we test, we learn, test, learn, and scale. And we use the same way for messaging. So I would recommend, if you have a hunch that a certain tone of voice works, test it. Test it on a small segment, see how people react, analyze the results, and move from there. Because a lot of times I've deployed campaigns and I've had my assumptions at the beginning, and the data proved me wrong. And what I assumed was going to work, it did not work in the end. And what I thought it was going to be horrible ended up performing really well. So again, I would recommend testing, but as well being mindful of your audience in the end.
Yeah, we actually have pre-tested on performance marketing every slogan that we put on every banner, just to see which one works the best. And this way, we're not feeling that we're taking a risk and then be like, oh, didn't it work? Maybe it was the messaging, maybe it was something else. And no, at least we know we chose the best performing messaging.
So in terms of your launch into the UK, which online channels did you rely on the most, and which success metrics did you use?
We went with the big ones first, so Facebook, /Instagram, and then Google. We are an Instagram first business, which is a weird thing to say a little bit, but 80% of our transactions come from Instagram. And then we tried a little bit of Snapchat, we tried a little bit of TikTok, Pinterest, and all of those things, including also DV360. That being said, for us, Facebook and Instagram remains the strongest channel, because you would assume that it should be Google, but it's not, because there's a lot of people who just don't know the product exists. So we're working on very, very strong creative that really quickly explain, this is the product, this is how long it takes, and this is how much it costs. And based on that, we actually got that quite well.
Any other questions from the audience? Don't be shy. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, happy to let's get some more drinks, get some food, and we'll be around if any questions pop up, just come and ask them away. Thank you very much.